It's like you can be more confident when you really know your shit. And I make it a point to really know my shit. I really do. And people say it, but they don't really mean it. I mean it. Like, I'm like, okay, let me go back and read that one more time. Let me understand that. Let me call this mortgage broker and I really want him to explain this to me because I really didn't understand what they said on the news today. Like, those are the things that I do so that I have a thorough understanding of it, because you can only really be confident when you feel good about something. In a weird, strange way, people really connected to that. And I think that in the way that people don't care nothing about nails for sure. And sometimes people don't even care about real estate, but everybody could relate to trying to rebuild your goddamn life. This is Tricia Lee, and you're listening to Dreams and Drive.
Hey, Dream Drivers, welcome to episode 237, and I'm super excited to be back at it with our guest interviews. You guys are in for a treat for today's episode. We're going to be speaking with Tricia Lee. So here's the whole thing about this episode. We're going to be talking about if limits really exist and if it's possible to have more than one career change. I think a lot of us dream drivers are in that position. We're thinking about where we're at in life, where we're at in our careers. We might want to make changes, but we just don't know if that's possible. So Tricia is going to tell you, yes, it is. After years of climbing the corporate ladder at MAC Cosmetics, Tricia decided to use all that knowledge, all that experience, and do something new, and that was entrepreneurship. She launched the Polish Bar in Brooklyn, New York, and ran that for multiple years, grew that brand. It was thriving, it was popular, it was successful, but she was ready to move on. So then what's next? Tricia found real estate and found a new love in being a real estate broker and entrepreneur. So I think what you guys will get out of this episode is that her journey wasn't linear, but dream driving doesn't have to be linear, right? Tricia's going to share in detail how she was able to navigate multiple career changes and why she's a believer in constantly chasing new life experiences. Some of the things that you guys will learn is why her early money habits shaped who she is today, how moving to New York City when she was younger really set the pace for her beauty career, the benefits of corporate experience. Listen, guys, you don't have to launch into entrepreneurship very early on. You can use your corporate experience and you can use your job experience and really learn on other people's dimes. So you're going to learn a lot about how that played out for Tricia. We're going to talk about how to navigate the challenges of being a first-time entrepreneur, what to do when you feel like you're trapped, tips for marketing yourself. And this is my favorite, why starting a new career at 40 or any age is possible, all right? So if you love this episode, you know what I'm going to ask you to do. Please make sure that you are sharing it. This is our first guest episode in like 2 months, guys. So I want to see you guys posting on Instagram. You can find us across the board at Dreams and Drive. Share this to your Instagram stories. Share on Twitter, Facebook, wherever. Just share this post and use the hashtag Dreams and Drive when you're sharing as well. And make sure you are subscribed to this wherever you're listening. Hit that subscribe button so that you get notifications every time we have a new episode. And remember, guys, remember, if you want to get a Dreams and Drive t-shirt or a Dreams and Drive crew neck, it's a great way to support. A lot of small businesses right now are really counting on the support of their longtime fans. So if you want to find a way to support Dreams and Drive, that's a great way. You can also check out dreamsanddrive.com/donate. All right. I really hope you guys enjoy this episode. Let's get into it. So I like to take to start our interviews by going back in time, right, Tricia? So I want to ask you, what were your dreams as a kid? What was inspiring you about the world as a young Tricia?
That's a good question. As a young Tricia, my only goal was to be a dancer. I wanted to be a dancer. I wanted to be like on Flashdance. That's what I wanted to do. So I watched a lot of MTV. I watched. I love that show Fame. I just love dance. And I spent a lot of time dancing, all of my time dancing. And that was my thing. I was going to be a professional dancer.
Were people in your life supportive of that dream, or were they kind of like, hey, you need to get another dream?
Yeah, the people in my life were like, okay, what do you really want to do? Like, how do you plan on taking care of yourself? Mm-hmm. So I learned really early on that I had to appease everyone by saying that I wanted to do X, but I would always do Y. So I was allowed to take dance class, like 1 or 2 classes a week, but I wanted to take, 12 or 14 classes a week. So at all of age 12, I went to the dance director and was like, listen, can I get a job around here doing something? Like, I need to support my habit. And like, my mom's not really trying to fall for that. At 12 years old, I started learning bookkeeping. I became the cashier, part-time cashier, and bookkeeper for the dance studio. So I would take in all the payments on the weekends when I was there. I'd be there all day, Saturday, Sunday. I would take all the payments, and then I would do all the bookkeeping for the week on payments and balancing accounts and writing the letters to people that had past due accounts. I was absolutely a 12-and-a-half-year-old bookkeeper, and I was making $2.25 an hour until I got a raise.
Wait, they trusted you at 12 years old to do that?
Yeah, they absolutely did. They had every reason to. By 12, I was already like paying all of our bills from the house. Like I would look at the bills, open them, highlight them, write the check out, have my mom sign them, total them up. I was overexposed to responsibility too young, I think. I think it's some form of child abuse, to be honest with you. But, I came from a single parent family. My mom, she worked really hard to provide for me and my sister and to give us what a lot of two-parent households did. So she really felt it was important for us to just learn how to take care of ourselves. And that meant paying the bills, understanding what the bills were, everything. I mean, there was nothing I didn't learn. I learned how to mow a lawn at like 12. I learned how to clean the pool. I learned how to fix the garbage. If it had to be done, we had to learn how to do it, period. So, I mean, till this day, my little sister still knows how to like do an oil change on her car. I mean, I'm sure I do too, but I'm not doing it.
But I feel like those are all good skills to have. What do you think?
They're great skills. They're great skills. Like I have this whole thing, like I go back and forth with my mom because they are great skills. But I'm like, when you're teaching children things that young, you're also giving them a lot of adult mind, like real adult mindset and like a little sense of paranoia at a very young age too, because then you take away that like childhood existence. So I'm like, well, I don't know if we have enough money for that because we have to pay the mortgage, we have to pay this, what I mean? It's like my mind is already being wired that way. I think everything makes sense in life in general, like all the good and the bad and the struggles. But, of course I was like trying to open my own business at 13 or like, I was able to do bookkeeping for a dance studio at 12 because I was balancing the household budget at 11 and 12,
Yeah, I have a similar story. So my parents are Caribbean. They were
that answers it completely.
They were the typical Jamaican, immigrants.
Yes.
And
my mother too, right?
You're Jamaican?
My mother and my father are Jamaican. Yes.
Okay, so my dad was like the typical like save your money cheapskate, right? Yeah, as kids, I think they taught us about how to budget and how to save, but then the backfiring of that is I didn't want to go on vacations with my friends. I didn't want to do anything. Like I was known from a young age of being the person who had who always had money, but I never spend it. So I think as I grew into an adult.
That's my sister. Like she ended up like that where I ended up, I guess because I was the bigger sister, I ended up being like, I can't deal with this stress. I got to figure out how to hustle. So she was always in a stability and still is. And like, literally, she's a professional returner. Like she buys everything. She feels guilty. She brings it back. I never return anything ever. And I am like very, very focused on the hustle because I'm like, I can't have all that stress and not knowing how to pay for these things. So I'm just got to figure out the hustle. So at a very young age, I had like a cleaning company and we cleaned all the houses in the neighborhood. Like we would put our little flyers together at Walgreens. And I had to make my money. I had to make my money very, very young. I had all my sister's friends working for me. And I would we had a price rate for dishes, for vacuuming, for cleaning the whole house. Because I've always been a very clean person. I've really been into cleaning. And I was hustling kids and child labor at 12 years old. I didn't care. Making my money.
But it seems like you also are very organized. Like these are all skills that, if you think about who you are today and what you've been able to accomplish, it really does stem from having that foundation as a child.
Yeah, like I always say, I'll take the good with the bad. It's just I was exposed to those things so early, So even like to this day, I can walk around the grocery store with my friends and they pick up things. I'm like, put that down. I'm slapping hands. I'm like, that's not on sale. Or you can get a better price for that if you buy it. They're like, Tricia, are you serious? I'm that girl. Like if anything in my house, I'm like, yep. And I save $400 on it because I bought it at the Friday sale or, I'm very much my mom in that way. But I focus more on hustle because I always feel like if I can out hustle, then I can always provide what I want for myself and I won't have that much stress.
So you grew up in New York, right?
No, I grew up in Arizona. But I was raised by New York women, so I always clarify that because I was raised by my mother, my grandmother, my aunt, all New York women, all New York influence. And I definitely came to New York a lot as a child. So we were in Arizona, but they were all New York women. They carried themselves like they were New York women. They were loud, they were aggressive, they were very strong-willed, that nobody was stepping over them. Like, they weren't the typical Arizona woman at all. They were like very outspoken. Like, they were like, they'd be honking their horns. Nobody honks their horns in Arizona. They're honking their horns. They're at the airport rushing for their luggage. No one rushes for anything. They always stood out completely, and it was embarrassing as a child, but now going back there as an adult, I'm like that, and they're all zen and chill, and it's hilarious.
So why the return to New York after college?
I really loved beauty by that point. I was working in beauty for 3.5 years. I loved beauty, and I felt like I could make a career of it. I wasn't really sure how I wanted to make a career of it, but because I had an interest in journalism, I had always had these these dreams of being like a Jackie Reed and being on the news. And I had all these little things in my life as I got into high school and college that I thought were realistic for me. So I thought, well, I really don't know what I want to do. I'm not sure, but I'll get really good at whatever I do in New York. So to me, it just made perfect sense. It was always this place where I felt that the strongest survived. People came to really discover themselves, and no matter what you did, I felt like if you did it in New York, you were kind of really good at it because you have to be able to, sustain living in New York. So the idea of moving here was a 2-year plan to just get really ahead in beauty and then be able to move back to Arizona, being honestly just stronger and faster than everyone else. That's the way I looked at it. In my mind, I felt like coming to New York and learning and mastering anything would put me ahead anywhere else.
Kind of like a boot camp.
Yeah, because I was like, if I'm halfway good in New York, I'll be the best wherever I end up.
So then what happened? Because you're still in New York now, right? And that's a couple years later.
I know. I think what happened was it was the first time that I was around diversity, that I was able to see, neighbors. I never had a Black neighbor. I never had a Black teacher. I don't think I ever had a Black classmate. I mean, I just, definitely not boss. I remember maybe I had one Black employee at my high school, and he was the security guard. So I think something changed in me when I got around diversity, and I got to learn more about not only my culture, but other cultures. And it was something that I was very drawn to, that I grew up being the only Jamaican at high school, the only Jamaican at a huge university, and people coming to you so is this true? I'm like, I don't know. I'm barely even Jamaican. My mom grew up in New York. So I'm more second generation, and I didn't have to represent Black, and I didn't have to represent Jamaican. Here, I could actually just learn about every culture, and I could see myself in people at work, my peers, my bosses, come out of the door and just see neighbors that look like me. And that was just a feeling of comfort, and you just settle in because you're wow, this is amazing,
Yeah.
For me, it just touched a part of my life that was missing that. So when people say, okay, why would you move to New York? I'm like, why wouldn't you move to New York? Are you kidding me?
It's something that I feel like if you've never been to New York, you just can't explain. Even if you don't want to live in New York, you cannot deny the energy that is New York. You know what I mean?
No. And I think that I get the other side of it, but I'm not afraid of what's tough if I really prefer what's tough, right? Mm-hmm. So it's yeah, of course I can live an easier life. I can go move to the suburbs right now in Arizona, but there's something about, I guess, building a life here to me that just always outweighs everything else. And it still has. It's been 20 years. It still has.
Wow. So I know that when you first came to New York, you were working for Estee Lauder, right? And then that's where you so just so I have it right, Estee Lauder, and then MAC is a company under Estee Lauder, right?
Yeah, okay. A lot of companies are under Estee Lauder. I mean, I believe Sean John, Tom Ford, Bumble and Bumble, Aveda, Origins, MAC, so many brands, Bobbi Brown, Clinique. All these brands are under Estee Lauder, and more become, a part of Estee Lauder. So at that time I was working for, I think, Clinique. And then I really was I'm going to move to New York and get me a job working at MAC. And I did. I got there in 3 months, I got a job working at MAC, and I started working there, and I stayed there for a really long time. I was there for 9 years. And it was at that time that I wrote the business plan for my salons.
The Polish Bar.
Yeah.
You know, from the outside looking in, people would say, oh, you have this great corporate job. Why would you leave that stability and then have this new dream, right? Like, what was the excitement within you? What was the, I guess, the catalyst for you wanting to step out and do your own thing?
I think that it absolutely was a great job, and I'd been there for, I don't know. I think I'd been there since I was 19. So I probably had been there for like 12 years total. So even though I'd worked for different brands and had all these different positions, I'd only gotten one paycheck ever. Like, that was great, but there's no growth after a while. Like, you learn and you learn and you learn. And specifically at Mac, it was such a small company when I started there. Like hand signed checks straight up. Like, it was not what it was not what it became, like, in the 2000s when it was like the hottest thing moving. Like, no, I would walk into a room, say I worked at Mac, and people would think I worked on computers all day. And then in that time I was there, it became what it became. And I mean, that was just really great experiences for me. And I learned so much, and I learned it, again, in New York on the front line. So it was like, we're doing a collaboration with Patti LaBelle. Okay, great. So Patti LaBelle is coming to one of your stores. You're going to host her. You're going to have this event. You're going to have people lined all the way down the street and around the corner to meet her. Like, it was the front line, So it just couldn't have been a better training ground for building a brand, building a customer culture, a corporate culture, employee culture. I couldn't have been in a better position to learn more than I learned there. And I took it all in. So that made perfect sense to me. But then when I'm no longer necessarily growing and developing, then it also makes perfect sense for me to cut the cord, And I think that was a long time to be at a company that wasn't my own. And I served it, and I served it well. But it was also really great to leave. And I mean, I left when I was getting ready to open my own business, and by that point, everyone I worked around knew about Polish Bar. We would talk about it. We would, I would work on the business plan during lunch. That very first year that I opened, Mac hosted their employee party at Polish Bar.
Wow, that's support.
Yeah, absolutely. Because nothing was ever like a negative thing. It was just like, I'm moving on. I mean, at that point, I'd opened like maybe 13 or 14 stores for them in New York City alone. And so opening my own business, I mean, it kind of is like the next natural step. People they saw the business and they didn't understand the backstory. So they just thought, oh, she loves nails and look at this great concept she came up with. No, like, yeah, that's true. But I had a boot camp.
I was going to say that because I think
a really effective boot camp.
I think a lot of dream drivers, right? They often wonder how important having that training ground is, right? Or how important is having that boot camp experience by working for someone else. Would you recommend it? Or do you think there are times when just going out on your own without any experience can be positive or can be successful?
No, I always recommend working under someone else's tutelage on someone else's dime. And like, there's so many kinks that you have to work out in business that I'll say it. I don't care who I upset. I think you work from a huge place of ignorance when you haven't worked for someone stronger, better, and professional at what it is that you're trying to do. You don't even know what it is that you're not doing right because you're not in tune.
Yep. Like,
you've got to work for the best writer or the top editor at a magazine to understand what it takes to be that. You know what I mean? You have to. You have to work under and learn from the best. You have to. And a lot of people discount that. And yeah, you can become an entrepreneur if you're really good at a certain skill and then maybe you're great at marketing. Yeah. But for the most part, you're always going to be better off learning the skills that you need under the right environment and hopefully at a really successful company so you can understand the do's and don'ts of running a really successful company.
I totally agree with you. And I think a lot of people sometimes think that, they're a failure or they're, it's weak, but I don't think it is at all. Like, you really do need that. Like, there's so many little simple things, like even just like how to write emails to people or how to just interact with people that are, it's so important.
Just what's appropriate. Like, so many people just miss the mark on what's appropriate. Like, a lot of people can't get that together. Like, and it's because they haven't had anyone, vested in their career to say, don't email her at 11 o'clock at night, you know, or whatever it needs to be said. I believe in it. And I don't think it's a popular answer, but I believe in it. And I think it really does help you. I mean, all of our experiences are preparing us for greater opportunities. And so when you limit your experiences, I think that you really limit yourself. And so many, I wouldn't do it, and I would never suggest it.
So one of the things that you mentioned about the Polish Bar, or before starting the Polish Bar, was that you had opened over 13 stores for Mac. You understood what goes into successful business from like the corporate side, right? What do you think helped make the Polish Bar so successful during the time that you were running it?
Well, first I would say 13 stores in New York, probably far more than that outside of New York City Metro. And that's fair because it's the truth, you know, and I think that, again, it's easy to overlook that, but it's important because it's like, so more times than not, you get things wrong. So it's like that amount of practice and effort each time, you get better and you get better and you get better. So it was definitely more locations than that. And, like so many parts of the business, like when you are like running your own business, you get it that you're responsible for all those sides of the business. But I think at Mac, what I learned about that environment was that HR had to be really tight. Orientation had to be tight. Like the way people come in and receive your business as an employee is super important because it really sets a tone with them. Mm-hmm. And that's important because that carries on to your clients and the level of service that is given. Just having a culture within that employee dynamic is important. You know, like, are you supportive to your employees? Are you incentivizing them to grow their careers? Like, I know that for me, if you came in and you did manicures only, within 6 months, you were on a training plan. Like, no, well, you should be doing waxing and eyelashes within a year. And this is how we're going to make sure that we have a succession plan set up for you. I learned that at Mac. I didn't make that up. I just understood how important it was, how vital it was for employees to feel good about themselves and therefore to offer and provide great service. So I think that in every business like that, you learn certain pieces that you kind of put into your own puzzle. So a lot of what I learned there was service and culture and people being proud of where they work. You know, I learned a lot about training and making sure that people within the organization really grew their own careers, and then also were learning also, not just they're working every day, but learning every single day. And I think that carries on. Like each experience I've ever had, whether it was working in beauty or working in my own businesses for, you know, a decade, it's like I can bullet point list for you the different skill sets that I perfected in that position, you know? Mm-hmm. And it's like kind of what has prepared me for, I guess, my third career. Like if I didn't build my own stores, I wouldn't feel comfortable understanding and knowing spaces. So now I can build a house and I can renovate a house, or I can rip it out. I can do whatever because I learned that in, you know, within my business. I had to design those stores. I had to build those stores.
You know, it reminds me of a quote that my mom used to tell me all the time. And she told me her mom told her. So this is a Jamaican grandma, right? In the Jamaican grandmother voice, she always said, you can't climb a ladder from the top, right? So basically saying that like all those things, like even from you as a kid running that bookkeeping for the dance studio and, you know, going to college and coming back to New York, all those experiences, you kind of had to go through them to get to where you are today, right? You couldn't really skip the steps.
No, I mean, if I didn't learn how to balance a checkbook and a budget and money, I wouldn't have been able to really impress people early on at Mac with like the things that mattered to them. Like we had been bought out really quickly by Estee Lauder when I joined there. And I was able to staff my stores and stick within payroll and stay within budget. And, you know, my expenses just weren't outrageous, but my businesses were doing really well. My accounts were doing really well. And that provided me promotions. But it's like, did you really learn that there? No, I learned that paying bills at 12. Mm-hmm. Like, this is how much money we have.
Definitely.
And everything needs to be paid or touched high. You know, I learned that there. Or even like the event side of the business, like something that I think Polish Bar was really well known for was events. And, you know, there's no event training. I never worked for an event company, but, you know, there are things that when you live in a home and you're taking care of a home, like I always felt like my training for events was our weekend shopping list. Like my mom was a couponer, a crazy couponer. And we would have like 4 papers for grocery shopping, and we would have her book of coupons, and then you have to pull out the expired ones. You have to put them in order, and they'd have to be in the order of the grocery store. Like literally, a grocery store has an order, and that's the order that they would have to be in. So like she's not walking back to get bread. Like the bread is at the end on the other, like that whole thing. And that's an event. I'm sorry. Like that's an event every other Saturday that you're like making, like if she gets to that register and one of those coupons are expired, now you've embarrassed her. It's going to be a problem when she gets home. Like that to me is what prepared me to have, 50, 100 person beauty events. And I've always pulled them off like seamlessly, but I learned it younger. I learned it at a much earlier age, like I learned how to coordinate the 5 different parts that need to come together for this event to be completely seamless.
What do you think was the biggest challenge you faced while you were running the Polish Bar?
Definitely staffing. It's for me, I think that professionally it was staffing because it was really hard to keep people. It was really hard to keep people that were good working in Brooklyn, because once they got good, they wanted to go and work at a really fancy schmancy place in the city. So that was hard. I think I did a very good job of it, though. I think most of my employees stayed with me for many years, some of them beginning to end. But it was hard. And I think professionally, and I think personally, the hardest part was balance, like just not having a good balance of life and home. So it was just all work. And then whatever relationships like just really became a catastrophe because of work, it was like, it just didn't matter. It was like, oh, well, I gotta focus on work. And so a lot of relationships were damaged because of it, because it's hard to be, it's hard to be involved if you're not present. And I wasn't present for like most of those 10 years.
Wow, 10 years. Do you feel like you were fulfilled towards the end? Because I know you eventually, so people know who are listening in, they know that you're no longer running the Polish Bar. But towards the end, what were your feelings? Were you feeling fulfilled? Were you feeling empty? What was what was running through your mind during those last moments of the Polish Bar?
Oh, I absolutely wasn't fulfilled. I mean, I would say 5 years in, I was over it. I was like, okay, this is fun, but.
So why'd you do it for 5 more years? That's a long time.
I know. It's the same reason why people keep jobs that they hate or careers that they hate, and they like went to school to become a lawyer and they hate it. They really want to open a dance school. It's kind of one of those things. Like after a while, what you do defines you, and you don't even know who you are outside of it. And that specifically was a very hard struggle for me, because it was very successful, and it was like I was that girl. I was known for it. I'm still known for it. Shit. I mean, I can't go anywhere without people mentioning it. So you start to believe that like that's who you are almost. Does that make sense?
Mm-hmm.
And it's not who you are, it's what you do. But you almost feel like you're trapped. I think that was a big part of it. I think the other part of it was, for me in the end, I was just trying to like strategize, like, how do I take this reach that I have and make it work for me? And I had to figure that out. I had to really, really figure that out, because I felt like what the business gave me was access to like some of the most phenomenal women really in New York. And I was like, okay, how do I bring them with me wherever I'm going?
But you didn't know yet where you were going.
No, I think 5 years in, I was like, I'm so tired of this. Like, I'm just tired of it, and I felt like I wanted to create a different type of life. But I was in the hype. Like, let's be clear right now. I was very much in the hype. Like, I was enjoying the events. I was enjoying the notoriety. I was also like, I was enjoying the success. The business was successful, financially. Like, it annoyed me, but it was like successful, Yeah. And then I think like in trying to figure out the next step, I wasn't sure in the beginning what it was going to be. And I just used to always say like, oh, the only people making money around here is real estate agents and landlords. Like I would always say that. And it was true, because you watch a lot of small businesses open and close and open and fail and open and close and open and close. And like, who makes money off of that? Right? Realtors and landlords. And so I was just like, I need to be owning these buildings. Like, I really got to figure this out. Like, I got to just figure something else out. And so I just figured that I would go into real estate, and I thought, okay, well, I'll probably do really well, because I can sell anything, anybody, make some good money, and then I'll figure out what my next step is. And so I did that, and not that it was that easy to do that, because I obviously still have my businesses, and I had to just really recreate myself and a schedule that made sense. Because I had to like get into real estate before I closed my business, because obviously I have bills to pay. But I decided at that point for the first time ever that I was going to at least share how scary the change was. And I was like, you know what, I can at least share this experience with people and be more honest about it. And at that point, I was never really vocal about myself when it came to my business. So even though like I had done a lot of interviews and I had done a lot of things, I always kind of focused more on the business, not so much on me. And so this time I was like, you know what? I'm just going to share like all that's going on and like how scary this is and how like it's hard to shift gears and to recreate yourself. And, you know, maybe it'll keep me more motivated. Maybe it'll keep someone else motivated. I really didn't know what it was going to do, but I figured I would try it. And I thought that I thought it would help. I thought it would help someone or something. Maybe if it was just me, it helped, but it would help someone. So I did that. And in a weird, strange way, people really connected to that. And I think that in the way that people don't care nothing about nails for sure. And sometimes people don't care about real estate, but everybody could relate to trying to rebuild your goddamn life.
Yep. That personal story, right?
Everybody could relate to that, you know, and they gravitated towards that, and they gravitated towards whatever it was that I was doing in doing so. So I just shared, and I was just honest, and I still think I share, you know, I still think I share whatever I think is helpful. And that's how I built my business. It's like people just started calling me. They're like, hey, Tricia Lee, you know, like, I mean, mind you, they already met me. They know me, but they were just like, oh, well, you know, I actually have a place I need to rent. I actually have a place I need to sell. And I'm like, you're going to trust me? Oh my God, why would you do that? and they did. They trusted me.
So did you have any experience in real estate, or was it something that you really had to learn from the ground up? I know you had experience on the, you know, in terms of you knew what it was like to construct a, you know, that kind of stuff, the actual selling of real estate though. How did you go about becoming versed in that industry?
Not really. Like I had done a little rental in college at this one property for 6 months. I loved it, but I was like a temp, and I couldn't stay. Like I wasn't even a temp. I was a secretary. Let's be clear. But the assistant manager, she went out on like a bed rest because she was pregnant, and like so she was like the rental girl. Like she was the one who twirled around those little pumps and made it happen. But when she went out on this on bed rest, they were stuck. And so they kind of like had to let the little 19-year-old receptionist help out. And I was like, watch this. So I grabbed them keys and I was like, I'm going to be just like Kelly. And I would do what I saw her doing, and I would set my little goals. And like within weeks, I had rented a ton of apartments because I knew how to do it. It was like, I didn't have that job, but you give me an opportunity, I'm going to run. So I loved it. But when she came back and I had to go back to school at the end of the summer, it was over. But I always knew, I was like, oh, that I can do. So I wasn't afraid of like that part of it. It was just like transactional, like learning that piece of it, you know. So that was actually really hard. And then I hadn't learned anything in a long time. So it was like, I was like, does my brain still work like that? You know, I wasn't sure if I could learn and like hold information, but it got really fun and exciting to learn. And I sat up in the front of the class, and I was such a geek, and I loved every minute of it. So it was fun. And then the minute I got started, I just looked at this business, me marketing myself, the same way I did Polish Bars. So I just had to like get over the shyness of now not marketing a product separate from myself, but marketing me. And once I swallowed that, I just did what I do, you know, which is I just market, I just promote, and I advertise, and I get the word out about whatever it is I'm doing.
When it comes to marketing yourself, Tricia, what was the one thing that you did that you think really resonated beyond sharing your story? Like, what are some tactical things that you just think for anyone listening in, if you need to market yourself, these are things that really helpful? I
think service is important. I think it's important to provide service. So like we're all agents, and you can go and get a real estate license just as easy as you can get a driver's license. But I think that it's important to provide content that is helpful to people and information. So one thing I did that I would call it more silent marketing, because it wasn't anything I posted. It wasn't anything that I printed or shared. But I don't walk in any room where I'm not a resource. Like every room I walk in, and I tell this to my agents, every room you walk in, you are who you are, meaning you are a broker. Then you need to be a broker when you're at yoga, when you're at spin, when you're at the grocery store, when you're at the gas station, because everyone that you come in contact with needs housing. So I'm a broker in any room. So any room I walk into, it is more silent marketing, but you're not going to interact with me and not know what I do and how well I do it. period. And that's not something that takes any cost at all. But I'm not hanging out with my girls and being silly. I'm always a businesswoman. I'll sit down to dinner with you. By the time we get up, you want to buy a house. That's just how it works.
How'd you get this confidence? You know, and I'm saying that because I think it's something that I think it's something innate, right? And not everyone has that. And where do you think that confidence came from for you?
I think a huge part of it is knowing how hard I go. Like, I work hard. Like, I mean, there's very few people that are going to outwork me, you know, like I'll whatever it takes, I'm going to do it. That has to be a part of the confidence. Cause I think it's easy to say, okay, well, she has it this way. I will bust my behind you. I will outwork you and your mother. You don't know me. I will get it done. And so how could you not be confident? You know, like, people that work around me closely, they're always floored by the amount of work I'm able to do and the results I'm able to get. But I don't make a lot of excuses, and I'm not lazy. If it needs to get done, I get up and I do it. So it's like that thing, like, I've always been an entrepreneur in that way. Like, I get up, I know what needs to be done, I address it. That's the most important thing to me for that day. It's a very systematic thing, you know, like, real estate can be very lonely. A lot of entrepreneurism can be very lonely because it's like you get up and you have to motivate yourself. You have to kind of like structure your day, figure out what's most important, prioritize, and not let things fall. I do really well with that. I do really well with understanding my priorities, focusing on getting things done, and just knocking it all out in whatever it takes. So if that is, you know, I've definitely worked on board packages until 2 a.m. I've definitely been in the office. My first year, I was in the office every day, 7:30. So it's just like, it's not a false confidence. It's really more like, you know, I study, I read, I understand, I ask questions, I know things, I study things, I go back, I walk through an inspection, I ask questions, I make sure that I am knowledgeable. So I think it's like, you can be more confident when you really know your shit. And I make it a point to really know my shit. I really do. And people say it, but they don't really mean it. I mean it. Like, I'm like, okay, let me go back and read that one more time. Or let me ask this question, or let me call up this HVAC guy and find out what he means when he said that, or let me understand that. Let me call this mortgage broker and I really want him to explain this to me because I really didn't understand what they said on the news today. Like, those are the things that I do so that I have a thorough understanding of it, because you can only really be confident when you feel good about something. And so I think a big part of it that you don't always share, and we should all do better with sharing that part, is just learning your craft and studying your craft and getting really good at what it is that you do. And I made it a point to really 100% delve into this new career in the same way that I had everything else.
And one thing that comes with is the results, right? Because I know that you received Rookie of the Year for your first year, and you sold, just make sure I'm getting this right, over 20 houses in 1 year, right?
Yeah.
And that's amazing. That's normally not typical, right? For a new agent.
But that schedule I kept wasn't typical. It was abusive. Oh, I was like, you don't want none of that, but it was great. But it was a lot. But, you know, for me, it was like, that's what was needed in order to do what I needed to do. So I worked every day. I mean, I worked every day. I did open houses every weekend except for Thanksgiving weekend. I worked every day. I worked all the time. It's just, you know, it's a lot. It was a lot. But I wanted to be successful. And I also, with real estate, you always want to be cautious because everybody goes into real estate. They share it with everybody and then they never talk about it again because they jumped out of it just as quick as they jumped in, right? If I'm taking these people, these women, this audience of mine on this ride with me, I can't just like disappear and never talk about it again. So it was like, I needed to take them with me for the full ride. And so to me, it was important to show myself that I could do it and I could do it really well. And I knew I could do it well. I knew that I could do it just as good as I had done Polish Bar, because Polish Bar wasn't my thing either. Like, I don't do nails. I bite my nails. My nails are bitten down right now as I'm talking to you. So, you know, I did Polish Bar well, but it's not like I did nails. You know, I marketed really well. And so I knew I could do the same thing for real estate. I just had to learn the product. And that's where the studying came in, and understanding and walking in basements and walking on rooftops and really like learning houses inside and out, you know. And I think obviously designing my spaces of my stores and having my own home before helped a lot. Like, life experiences valuable always. So it helped, and it definitely pushed me ahead. And then just having that business mind also, is huge. It's huge. I'm always analyzing. I could be at a restaurant and I'm looking at people's business operations. Like I'm not even at work and I'm working. I'm like, oh, this ketchup bottles are a little bit slit. Like, so I just take it all the way there. But once you're a business owner, you're a business owner. And that's always how you look at things. So I just looked at real estate the same way. I worked really hard and I absolutely got, like, I call it getting low. Like when you first get into something and you need to get focused, I got low, which means I had to like just get all distractions away from me. So I had to kind of like just focus on what it is that I was trying to do. So my whole first year, like there was nowhere to go, nothing to post, nowhere to be, because I needed to be focused on what I was trying to do, which was rebuild my career. That was imperative to me. So I had to step back from a lot of other things in order to do that. And I think that that's something that maybe the next person wouldn't really want to do or even have to do. I have to do that. I have to step away and get low. And when I get low, when I come back up, I've now gotten comfortable and good at whatever it is that I was like completely, fully entrenched in. And I had to do that for my first year in order to get my career where I needed it to be, because, I wasn't like 20 starting a new career. I was 40 starting a new career.
What do you think was the scariest part of this transition for you? Or was there?
The scariest part, ego-wise, was not being the best or really good at something, and like being in a room where like no one knows you, no one cares, and you don't know nothing. Like that was kind of scary, because I was like, wait a minute. Like I have talent, I have skills, but like, you don't know anything in this room, so what does it matter? So that was kind of like scary, because I was just like, well, what if I can't get really good at this? Like, what if, that is not... Maybe I'm never going to be really good at it. Like maybe I'll just like be mediocre or less. So that was scary, like for my ego. And then I think the financial piece of it is always really scary, because you have to start from scratch, which means, you don't have the same budget. You don't know, you don't know. Not that I ever knew where the next dollar was coming from when I owned my businesses, but I mean, I had a really cute service. So people wanted what I had to offer. Whereas this was like, you could be in real estate for a year and nobody ever worked with you.
Wow.
So financially it was pretty scary, but, luckily I'd sold my place and I had a cute nest egg. And, that's why I always tell everybody I really believe in real estate, because had I not purchased something at such a young age, I wouldn't have had that to fall back on. And I'm not saying that people should buy property and then decide they want to like rebuild their life and sell their property and live off of it. But shoot, that's what I did. And it gave me the peace that I needed in order to recreate, everything. And it absolutely worked out, because I was able to kind of start a new career, rebuild, eventually buy another home and have equity in that home, and, just set it up different. But then now I'm not working at my stores 13 hours a week, and I'm not working 13 hours a day. I'm not, working 7 day weeks. I have more flexibility. I'm home working today in my pajamas all day, where I will stay. Like, so I did what I set out to do. So to me, that was worth it.
And I was going to ask you, because it can be easy when you're driving. I mean, of course, when you're driving, you need your rear view. You have to look in your rear view mirror every now and then, right? But when you're dream driving, sometimes looking in that rear view mirror can be a distraction. Did you ever find yourself, saying, hey, did I make the right choice? Maybe I should have stayed at the polish bar. Maybe I should have, how was that? Were you staying focused ahead, or did you ever, look back?
No, I never, I don't have that. Like, I do understand it, especially like when you're in a situation like Polish Bar, where you get like a lot of love and, I don't know, admiration, I guess that would be accurate to say. Mm-hmm. So I could definitely see how that feels good. I mean, let's be honest. And so I could see how you would want to stay in that, and then you go into real estate, nobody knows you, nobody cares. And it's going to take you 10 years to rebuild yourself to be, if you're lucky, even good, more or less the best at something. So yeah, that's not fun, but, I never, like, I knew that there was the right decision for me, because I wasn't happy. So it was like, okay, like maybe I can be happy in another situation, but I wasn't happy in that situation at all. I was over the stress of it. I was over the day-to-day operations of it. And I was absolutely like exhausted by trying to figure out what next, what's not, what next, what can we do next? What can we do next? And again, it was a small business. And so maybe that's why it was a lot for me to manage. I didn't feel that it allowed me the freedom to kind of have my personal life in full swing. Mm-hmm. And I wanted that. I wanted to have it all. I wanted to have it all. And I just knew that something needed to change. And again, it's not because it would have to change for every woman, but for me, Tricia Lee, I needed to shift from what I was doing to something different because I wanted to create more balance in my life. And I wasn't able to successfully do that in that dynamic.
Yeah, and I think it's really important. I think a theme that I was listening to a previous interview you did. You talked about this idea of creating your own rules, and sometimes we can find ourselves existing in other people's rules, right? Like you mentioned how at your salon you thought you had to run it how they run things in corporate, right?
Right.
And I think in our lives, we sometimes forget that we are the designers of our lives, right? And we have the ability to paint our lives the way that we want we want the final photo to look. So how did that idea of creating how are you creating your own rules now in what you're doing and what you envision for your future?
I think I've really come into that like late, which is not a negative thing. Like I do everything on my own schedule, but the first few years it was like go, 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 hustle, 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 hustle. And it wasn't until really last year that I was like, I'm not working like that anymore. Like it just has to feel different for me. So now I forgive a lot more when it comes to how I work. It's almost like I went from this thing of being like working in corporate America and then having my own business, but I worked still very much structured. I still had a very tight schedule and I had all these things I need to get done. And like, I was still like kind of in corporate in the way that I thought and approached things. And then now I feel like it doesn't have to necessarily be that way. Like sometimes the day can be getting up and going to yoga and then going to breakfast with a client or a friend. And maybe I don't really get into work mode until 12, or, sometimes it's 4, like just kind of going with the flow of the day a little bit more. Like my business is a business based on relationships. So I've learned to kind of make sure that I'm making a lot of time for the relationships because that's how I get my leads and that's how I get my opportunities. So I'm trying to just kind of deconstruct what I created and find different ways. Like one of the big things I talk about with my friends is like, I'm not working that hard anymore because for so many years, it is about how hard I can work and like how much I can outwork you. But I just know that now I don't have to, right? Mm-hmm. I can say no to things. I can decide to not take certain opportunities and it's fine. I can be more selective about what I do and what I delegate. So I want to make sure I stay true to why I changed my life. I changed my life because I wanted more balance. I wanted more flexibility and I wanted more life. And then a job and work that really supported that life, specifically that, Mm-hmm. And so now I have to kind of catch myself when I'm not being true to that. And I have to catch myself and say, well, no, this is about you, being home and cooking dinner. This is about you being on vacation and being able to sign off and have a few hours to yourself. And I mean, when you're a workaholic, that sounds really ridiculous, but when you're a workaholic, those things are really hard to manage and to work on,
Yeah, you deserve that. Cause like you said, you really have done so much. So you definitely do deserve this time where you're able to kind of sit back a little bit. And one of the things too, that you're able to do now is you're also able to give back and help others. So I know that you also now, financial wellness and empowerment is a part of your mission as well. Like what made you want to step into that arena?
I bought a house. And becoming a landlord, I renovated a space that I love and like I just really thrive in. And I guess, and I'm also getting older, so I think a lot about the woman's role in the home. And, I think a lot about we oftentimes outlive our partners. We absolutely make less money on the dollar than they do. We, we work just as hard to make less money. A lot of times we're the head of the finances. And a lot of times in the home, we actually spend more money on incidentals, right? So like you go to work and I go to work, but I come home with incidentals for the home. So we're spending more money, making less money, outliving you. It's like this whole dynamic that can happen in a lot of traditional relationships. All I care about is freedom. Everybody knows that. I don't care about nothing but my freedom. Like I want to feel free to do what I want to do and not do what I don't want to do. And so, money becomes a part of that. So everyone wants to talk about self-care, and that's great. Like, but self-care costs. Like, so what is self-care? Like, is it taking time off? Well, you have to be able to afford to take time off. Is it taking a break? You have to be able to afford that. If it's a massage, you have to be able to afford those things. If it's reading or whatever on an afternoon, that's fine, but you have to like be able to afford a lot of what self-care is. And so I thought that if I could just start sharing some of the things that I've learned in the last few years with my audience, the same audience of women that have been so loyal and so great to me, and start showing them different ways to become homeowners, landlords, home investors, or even just learning how to manage their finances better, I thought that it would be really helpful. And I was nervous early out because I really didn't know if that audience would grasp at it. And I didn't know if they'd care, but they care a lot. They love it, and they've really like supported it. So what's cool about it is this puts me in a situation to like take what I'm learning in my career and take it right back to my audience and say, okay, if you buy a home and you have a multifamily, this is what this can do for your finances. If you have a home in a really great appreciating neighborhood, that's equity. This is what that can do for you when it's time to retire. This is how you can set yourself up. Nothing will make you money and change your outlook like real estate will. Millionaires, billionaires, inventors, XYZ, most of their money is still going to be in real estate. And so I feel like I want to share that with the women around me so that I can empower them to make those types of decisions in their life so that they can set themselves up for whatever the future holds, and more importantly, to give them the freedom to make their own decisions. Like, I want you to be able to quit that job, quit that man, quit that situation, because you're set up to do so. You can make a decision about what's best for you.
Yep. And I think I love that, this is now also something that you're sharing with your audience, because I just think it may seem like, everyone's talking about it, but you can never have enough of this conversation. You know what I mean? You can never have enough. And sometimes it's just about finding the person that you resonate with that's teaching you about it, because there may be other people talking about this, but people who love you, people who appreciate everything you've done so far, hearing it from you can impact them in some way that, hearing it from somebody else probably doesn't.
Yeah. And I think also, like, in a lot of situations, like we're not as honest as we need to be. You know what I mean? Like, whereas I will sit down with people and say, okay, this is what I did. This is what you can do. Like, if you put this much money here and you do this and you can do that. And I think it's helpful. Like, we're actually putting together another Money Matters event for the spring. Leading up to that, we're doing a small little Money Matters happy hour starting this month, where we just get together with a group of 10 or 12 women to sit down and talk about home buying step by step, answering questions, that are true, like things that people really struggle with, and resources. Just, maybe if it's just a small group of 8 or 10 of us, we can go into it a lot better. I'm all about women not waiting for that. Like, not like, because let's be honest, I always thought I had to wait for that. And it's just like, no, you don't. Like, you can set yourself up financially now, no matter what age you are. You can be 24. I don't care. You can be 84. Like, you can set yourself up financially. And I just know that real estate allows you to do that. I mean, like, I am living proof. I literally quit my life and rebuilt my life because I was able to sell my apartment and sit down and figure out a plan. And I rebuilt my entire life, and I'm not showing off. It's just the truth. I needed to. God, I needed to. And I did. A decision to buy an apartment in New York at a very young age is what supported that freedom. I think it's super important to share that with people.
Will there be any more pivots anytime soon? Or do you see yourself settling in real estate for, the foreseeable future?
I love a pivot, but I don't believe in like anything being final. So I would have to say yes. I see something changing in some way, shape, or form. Just because that like hunger to grow and learn is always going to be like within me, So I think it'll continue to change. And I'm big on, like, I've never been one to believe that you have to do anything for the rest of your life. Like, I always loved the Elizabeth Taylors of the world. I always loved women that had many husbands, many houses, many lives, many careers. Like, I love it, and that's not to say anything about my relationship, but like, life is forever changing and growing, and I'm all about that. I'm all about it, so I know I'll probably end up doing another whole career, yes, I would say that's true. I think real estate will always be involved in the things that I do, though, because it kind of always has been, if you think about it, you know?
Yeah. And, that's all right. And I think the biggest thing I want people to take away from this interview is it's okay, right? Like, things start, things end, and that's okay. As long as you're still here to keep and build something new. I think that's just so many of us just get so stuck in the, do I have to stay in this forever? No, you don't. And it's all right to quit something. It's all right to say this has come to its end and you want to do something else. And I think just hearing your story and will definitely inspire somebody who's sitting at home in a dead end job, dead end something, right? And trying to get out. You can, and it's okay. It's okay.
I think it's so important, to change in that way and to grow in that way. You know what I mean? Like, I always think two things are really important is that, you do have to grow, like you have to grow and you have to just develop and change. And you always should be looking to figure out ways to do so, but also really making an impact where you are, wherever that is. So I've always believed in just having a really strong work ethic and just really over delivering wherever you are. So it's, McDonald's would never hire me because they suck. But, had I worked there, I would have been the best there. It doesn't matter. It doesn't matter. I waited tables and I was really, really not good at it, but I tried really hard. I tried really hard to make sure that I gave great service and that, I really think people tipped me well because they saw I was trying really hard. I always dropped the drinks. I was always kind of clumsy in that way, but I worked and I tried really hard. And I always made sure I looked nice for work. And I always, did my little hair, my makeup and XYZ. And that's kind of how I got into beauty, by being a little bit overdone and waiting tables. And in beauty, I really tried to do, really great, successful sales. So I think it's about being content where you are and just learning as much as you possibly can and making an impact where you are. But hell yeah, it's about growing and growing up and growing out. I'm not trying to do nothing forever, period. Ever. And it is scary. I'm not going to say it's not. It's very, very scary, but I think it's just so necessary. I can't shrink in that way. I just could not just sit down and just shrink and do nothing. I need to be growing in that way all the time. I need to be doing something bigger and better in the future.
So last question, Tricia, if you want to be a dream driver, you have to have your keys to success, right? So what do you think are 3 things that every dream driver needs in their toolkit before they hit the road?
Faith, a certain sense of work pride, just being proud of what and how you do what you do. I think it's super important. Because sometimes your motivation isn't going to be there, but maybe your pride will be there, I think that's really, really important. And just always imagining or hoping or trying to make sure you improve things, are you leaving it better than you found it? I think that's really important. If that's your only goal is to improve something, I think whether it be contributing to a conversation, whether it be working on a project, working on a team. If your only goal is to make your contribution and make an improvement, I think you're in a good way. I really do.
All right. And where can our dream drivers find you online if they want to connect, if they want to, learn more about the different listings you have, they want to follow you on Instagram? Tell us where we can connect with you online.
Yeah, sure. I'm at Sold by Tricia Lee everywhere. So SOLDBYTRICIALEE. That's my website. It's my business handle on everything. It's the easiest place to find me.
All right, so that's a wrap for episode 237 with Tricia Lee. I hope you enjoyed hearing her dream driving journey as well as her keys to success. If you love this episode, please share it with a friend. Share it, guys. You can find us across the board on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram. We're Dreams and Drive, and use the hashtag Dreams and Drive when sharing as well. A lot of times I get a lot of questions about, hey, Raina, how can I support Dreams and Drive? Well, there are 2 main ways right now. If you'd like to donate, just go to dreamsanddrive.com/donate for the options. I really invite people to join our Patreon community. That's a great way for $5 a month. It really goes a long way. So please consider being part of our Patreon community. Also, guys, the dreamsanddrive.com/shop is open. So if you want to get a classic Dreams and Drive t-shirt or a classic Dreams and Drive crew neck sweatshirt, just go to dreamsanddrive.com/shop. I really appreciate and I really love seeing you guys rocking your Dreams and Drive gear. It's a great way to show others that you are a dream driver, and it's a great way to support a small business, a podcast. I really think that as dream drivers, it's great to invest into each other, especially during this time. So if you do want to order and if you do want to support, I appreciate that as always. Remember, wherever you're listening, please make sure that you are subscribed. Hit that subscribe button. Make sure you get notifications every time we have a new episode. And if you're listening in on Apple Podcasts specifically, please make sure you're leaving us reviews, guys. Those reviews mean a lot. And I'm really appreciative when I can go in and just see what you guys are saying and really get that feedback. I have a new one coming in. This is coming from the Happy Hour Workaholic, and it says, "Congrats on your success. As a fellow podcaster, I know what it takes to produce a show and provide great content for your listeners, and your show does just that. So glad I found you on a special episode. 1 million downloads. Huge congrats. Love your show and excited to hear what's to come." Thank you so much. I really do appreciate it. As you guys know, our last episode 236, was our 1 million download episode. So if you have not listened to that one, please go back to listen to it. I share my 10 tips and strategies that have helped me grow the podcast over the last 4 years. And I really want other young creators, well, not even young as an age, but just new creators or people who've been doing this for a long time who may feel discouraged. Do not give up on yourself, and know that there are strategies, there are things that you can do if you continue to put in the work and put in the time. You will see those results. All right, as always, keep dreaming, keep driving, and we'll chat again in episode 238. We'll be speaking with Tristan Walker, Walker & Co., aka Bevel. All right, bye guys.